I've come to fight for the truth to live. I know there's more than the truth that is. I'll be the call for the soul to give. I'll be the tall face on top of the counter. The tall face on top of the counter. I know we lose what we cannot give. I know you give more than you can give. I know you live where we cannot live. You are the candle that burns in the desert. The candle that burns in the desert. Your fire is my fire. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Burn higher and higher. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Your fire is my fire. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Burn higher and higher. Take me to where only is, where we are and we are and we are. Take me to what justice is, when we are and we are and we are. Take me to where only is, where we are and we are and we are. Take me to what justice is, when we are and we are and we are and we are and we are. We are and we are and we are. We are and we are and we are. We are and we are and we are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Behind the Music album spotlight for Rags Parkland Sings the Songs of the Future. My name is David Treatman, one of the producers of this original cast recording. I'm joined today by Stacey Sargeant and Andrew R. Butler. And later on, we will have an additional guest in the program to kind of dive into the music and see how we got here and how this record unfolded. So, Andrew, Stacey, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Thanks for having
Oh
us.
my goodness. So good to see your faces. Stacey, I love the beach theme.
I love beaches, so welcome to my bedroom.
What's my theme, David?
Your theme is musician hard at work in the closet.
All right.
I love it, but with nice natural lighting.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a closet with a window, like, New York City apartments. The best of them.
Sure. Hex is joining us as well.
My cat, Hex, is somewhere. He was threatening a moment ago to make chaos, and now he's, well, who knows where he is, which is maybe the most chaotic choice, which I can trust him to make.
Amazing. Well, maybe we will be joined later by Hex. So today we're going to kind of dive into the record, how these songs came to be, how we laid them down. I guess let's start for people who aren't familiar with the music or haven't listened to the record, maybe a brief summary introduction to the world and the story of Rags Parkland.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rags Parkland is a singer-songwriter who lives about 250 years in the future. The show Rags Parkland Sings the Songs of the Future is framed by a concert that Rags Parkland gives in that distant future. And a part of that concert, Rags talks about a time in his life 10 years prior when he was a member of a band led by a musician named Bo Weathers. And in the show, we start with Rags solo and we flash back sort of to the last concert by Bo Weathers' band. And her band is named The Future. And that's kind of like the structure of the show. And what's going on in the show is a lot of robots. It's the silliest way to say it. But the thing that's going on in this world right now is constructed humans fighting for the right to exist, essentially. Bo's band, Bo Weathers in the Future, all of the members of the band, except for Rags, are in some way or another constructed humans, which is sort of the parlance of the future for folks who weren't created, born the way that all humans today are created and born, but folks who are constructed from synthetic materials or biological materials in lots of different combinations, and are people like you and me, but are in a scenario in which the authoritarian government that exists has decided they shouldn't exist anymore, and their destruction has been ordered. But Bo, in the future, her band live in Richmond and under Richmond, where there's a big community of constructed folks and other folks who are living outside the bounds of the surface society. And their music is about that struggle, and it's about the history that has led up to that moment, and it's about their lives, their work, their love, their joy, and carrying the story of others from their community and affected communities into the space of this concert, which is one of the traditions of folk music that sort of spiraled me into the making of this universe and telling the story through the context of a concert.
And where did that idea come from to tell it as a concert and stuff? Because I think that'll factor into what I'd love to talk about later, the construction of the album, you know, and how this show translated to an album. Where did you get that concept for conveying story through a concert like that?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to come back to that. But first, I feel like I need to check in with Stacey and see if in listening to me, Stacey, what were you like? Also, that like, what do you have any layers to add?
No, I think it's your show. You captured it beautifully, and I think I would just add to that the music was also part of the band's fight. That's all I would add to what you said.
Yo. Thank you, Stacey. Yeah, and did we say this in the show, in the on the album, and in the show we did in New York at Ars Nova? I played Rags and Stacey played Bo, just to make sure that context is specific.
Yeah, no, thanks for catching us on that one. That was probably would have been a good place to start. But
we're here now.
And that's what matters. So, and Andrew, I'll kind of give people some more context too. So this kind of universe you've built out and that other people then came in and helped expand started as a solo act, solo concept. How did that transition into the full concert?
It started with songs. The process was really started with songwriting. And songwriting kind of around the idea of the future and folk music and science fiction and folk music, which were just two mine that I was mashing together. And from those songs, themes started to emerge around stuff that I was thinking about and my anxieties or fears or things that I was trying to hold on to inside of myself. And also from those songs, like character and world and specifics started to emerge. And then I kind of took those cues to start writing a world. And it was originally a solo show because I knew that I had a guitar and I had a me. And that was like everything I could be certain of being able to come up with for putting on a show. So I thought, start real simple. And my dear friend, Jordan Fine, who has developed the show with me all these years and directed it from the very first time I performed a solo Rags Parkland concert at Ars Nova in 2010 at Antfest. One of the things that was in the show even then was the idea of Rags having been in this band, that he was doing a return concert to Earth. And originally there just was no flashback to that earlier band. It was just Rags for, 45, 50 minutes. You had to be in it for like a dude with the guitar singing dude with the guitar songs, which is a very that's an endurance vibe for some folks. So the seed of the idea of these other musicians was in there from the beginning, and I didn't always have the colleagues to call on or the resources to offer or the encouragement to take the leap into inviting other folks into the collaboration, which is was a scary thing to do for me. And over the years of developing that solo show and that history of the band becoming more specific, it really emerged as the thing that was most exciting. And that band's experience and the potential for the scale, the joy, the variety, the immediacy of being with that band felt like very theatrical. So
absolutely, yeah. And Stacey, coming into, you know, this whole process, as Andrew touched on, was so organic and sort of I don't hesitate to say natural, but, you know, like kind of like slower than it maybe would be in a traditional musical theater off-Broadway musical setting.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like getting to come into this project and, you know, insert your own voice and your own experiences into the framework of what Andrew was kind of building up?
Well, I'll just say from the moment I met Andrew, when I auditioned for the show, it felt collaborative from the beginning. I was actually sick when I auditioned, and I never felt any judgment. Clearly there was no judgment because I'm here. But I felt really comfortable with the fact that he was okay with the fact that I was sick, and it was just like, you know, give me what you got. And he and the creative team just kept asking for more. And then once I was cast, everyone on the creative team was just really open to who I was, who I am as a singer and as a human who's playing a robot. No. But really open to what my flavor was that I was going to bring to it. And that's not usually the case in musicals. So I was very appreciative for that experience.
And the show really benefited tremendously from it. I mean, I saw one of your previews at Ars Nova after, you know, shortly after with Andrew and I met, but just the soul that you infused into it. And, you know, the show just was elevated so much by every single person, artist contributing to it. And Stacey, you are amazing on the album. Everybody after this live stream, go listen, because it's truly incredible. That process of helping make the band was really a very different challenge than what we had almost a year later, just over a year later, I think, when we were laying down the record, because that was not, you know, the show had happened and the show was sort of formed as the show, and we had this new opportunity to revisit the music and decide what we were going to create. And Andrew, you know, you and I talked, I think in that church park, you know, up at 110th Cathedral Parkway, but we were talking about what we wanted this album to look like and this process. And we kind of settled on this being an artifact from the universe of the story. Could you expand? And Stacey, I'd love to hear any thoughts you might have on this, because you were involved in these discussions later. You know, what did that mean? And people who think that I sound crazy right now, who don't know what we've talked about, what was that artifact we were creating?
all right, buckle up.
It's like your favorite question,
yes.
I know.
Oh yeah. So this concert the universe is just a fictional universe where all this stuff has happened. So when you're going to see the show, you're stepping into that universe and you're experiencing both of these concerts. And in making the album, you know, it's not like a musical where there's a fourth wall and we're watching people in their day-to-day lives. And there is like, in a world that is infused with music, it's actually a much more naturalistic experience of like, oh, I'm attending an event where there are songs as a part of it. There's something sort of direct about it. And we wanted the album to be able to exist in the universe in the same way that in the show, like when you go to see the show, like the set exists in the universe. Your chair exists in the universe. It contains information about the world. The lighting on
the audience
stage
is participatory as well. It's just everything from the moment you walk through the door is constructed.
Right. And so this seemed like an opportunity to keep playing that fun, creative game of like, how is this album itself adding a new layer of information about the universe? And the way that we did it was framing it as this album is a sort of work of historical production where producers like 100 years or whatever, I forget now what we put in the album, after the time of the concerts, have found the recordings of these 2 live performances and have cut them together into an album that it contains parts of both concerts to tell the story of Bo in the future and their final concert by using this later Rex Parkland concert as a framing device. So I sort of have imbued upon these fictional future record producers the creative choices that the Rags Parkland creative team made about how to tell the story.
And that was such a fun thing to play around with, and was so unusual for like everyone, all the collaborators we needed, at the studio, and like all these other things that we were pulling into this. It was so interesting explaining that, and then also having them become a part of that conversation. I want to pull up for us now. I don't know how long it's been since you've seen this, but one of the ways we decided to make this accessible to people who hadn't seen the show before was to do, for the album itself, a booklet within a booklet that would accompany the CD. And this is available for free download off of Broadway Records' website, but I have some of the pages here to look at. Sophia, our engineer for the live stream, can you pull those up for us? Sophia! Well, they will be coming up shortly. But this booklet, which has an amazing design by Philip Romano, very talented graphic designer, sandwiches the booklet that would accompany the CD equivalent, the music equivalent you would buy in the future. This is the booklet that would accompany that, sandwiched inside of the booklet you get with your Rags Parkland Ars Nova off-Broadway CD. And so that's sort of what's in here. But it's just, our cover of the CD booklet is the cover that's displayed everywhere, for the album itself. And for those of you at home, I encourage you to go download this booklet and read through it, because we sort of had a lot of fun putting this together. Oh, Andrew is such a problem solver. I love it.
Yeah, so the digital is so gorge. Go check it out. We didn't give it to Sophia, is what we learnd on the back end. We were like, let's do, and then we didn't give it to Sophia. So that may emerge. Man, CDs are so hard to get into.
It's a dying medium for a reason. I'm just kidding.
Packaging. You got like musical.
Oh, here we go.
Album.
Andrew, perfect timing. You are a good luck charm. So here you can see the large version of what Andrew is holding up. This was the cover designed. It's what's on the CD cover, and then you immediately click into this. There's the information from the original run, and now here is the record cover for the record that is made in the universe of the show. And here on the side is this short description of sort of what we're talking about more abstractly, the booklet within a booklet, the show within a show. Here there's a beautiful, this is our fake producer historian from the future, from the year 2299. This is what he has to say about how this was created. And then, you have more traditional lyrics, but it's all these are lyrics written by a historian in the future about past events that are still in our future. One of my favorite things in here, actors playing band members is enshrined on this page versus on the last page, we have actors as actors. And we have a fake copyright at the bottom. We've got fake recording details. It was a very fun call with the entertainment lawyer of this project, asking if we were allowed to include these things or if it's somehow confused.
Yeah, like we destroy the copyright law by copyrighting the whole
Tunneltown Records 300 years from now.
Yeah, what is it?
2299 Tunneltown. Yeah. And here is the real off-Broadway shows, ending there. And that was, I think, that's a good encapsulation for people who are curious to go learn more about what we're talking about. But it really, I think that was really interesting. And Stacey, practically for you, did that affect in any way your performance in the recording studio or inform your acting choices, knowing kind of the conceit of the record?
I can't say that it did because, am I breaking up?
There we go. You got you now.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, I can't say that it changed my performance in any way because I don't think I knew about what you guys were planning on doing with the album cover until after we recorded. But when I found out what you were doing, I thought it was really cool and just different. And it just was indicative of the entire process of making this show and making the album, and just speaks to who Andrew is.
I guess for you, the more, yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, Stacey. The internet is all dirty, but I guess for you, the biggest change was going from, you know, your range on this record is absolutely epic, swinging from belt to whisper and everywhere in between. You know, and we laid the whole album down because of everyone's schedules we laid the majority of the album down in 3 days. I guess for you, that's the bigger change, is going from performance every night to that. And what was that transition like?
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest challenge for me because during the run of the show, obviously we're coming off of, I can't remember how many weeks of rehearsals, but I had the time to build up the vocal stamina necessary to do the show night after night, 8 shows a week. And then it was a little more than a year before we came into the studio. And for that year, I hadn't done much singing. I did a little, but certainly not what was required of me in this show. So I went into it, with some concerns in terms of my vocal health. But I feel like between you and Jordan and Andrew figuring out the best schedule for the order of songs, the order that we recorded in, I think it worked out.
I listen to this all the time, and I never get tired of your performances on it. So how, a year between the live show to the recording, and then now we're, months and months after releasing the record, how has your relationship, Stacey, with the music changed over time? And what does it bring up for you when you listen to it now versus performing it live versus in the studio? And then Andrew, I'll ask you the same question.
Well, for me, when I booked this show, it was the first show that I did after my dad had passed. And so it was the first show I had auditioned for and booked. And so I felt like it was sort of a blessing from him because he also was a music lover. And there were certain, the lyrics just meant something different at that time and were very personal, especially on one song in particular, which I was terrified of singing during the show because I didn't know if I'd be able to get through the song without completely breaking down, because it's a song about loss. And now when I listen to it, being in this pandemic, the lyrics mean something. I mean, it's almost like a micro to macro. It means something much bigger because so many people and people that I know personally have lost loved ones in the past. What is it? Has it been 6 months now that we've been in this situation? So lyrics like I've held a million hopes, I'll never hope again. So many things I've thought to start will never now begin. When I was doing the show, that meant something very personal in terms of things that I won't get to experience with my dad, and versus now, it's just on a much larger scale, the things that can't happen. I mean, look at theater. We don't know when theater will be again. So for writers, creators, we have projects that we don't know that are ever going to happen. So yeah, it just means something a lot bigger, as well as I don't think anyone could foresee where we would be in terms of the political climate that we're in. I mean, we were in it when we did the show, but things have, in my opinion, gotten progressively worse. And in terms of the music being a revolution, this show is much more relevant now to me.
I think the song you're talking about was These Small Things, right? That really.
Yeah.
Would you be prepared and willing to maybe sing that for us?
Absolutely. Sure. Let me just get myself set up.
While you're doing that, it really is such a blessing we even laid the record down at all, because so when we reached out to everyone about recording, it was so long after the show. Pretty much everyone had moved on to other projects, other jobs, and things like that. And we found these 3 days at the very start of December to do this. And the next window was going to be July, I think, June or July, which, it's just amazing that we got the chance to do this at all. There we go.
Oh, David. Yeah.
I could do it, but I'm not ready.
All right.
Nobody wants to hear that. Okay, Stacey.
Remembering you in tangled blues of indigo and cyan. I mopped the floor we laid and loved and fought, giggling and crying. I catch myself thinking of you, but can't remember why. These small things, they feel like dying. These small things, they feel like dying. Your little yellow teapot and your pictures on the wall. The tiny leaves I gathered to remind you of the fall. So many words I used to know don't mean a thing at all. These small things, they feel like dying. These small things, they feel like dying. I see your face, just an inch above the corn, and in your place are many trinkets I have worn to the sky. Your mother's lemon tree will grow way up high, where you and I will never go, never go, never go, never go. These small things, they feel like dying. These small things, they feel like dying. I have held a million hopes I'll never hope again. So many things I sought to start will never now begin. Time will heal your wounds, they say, but she won't tell you when. These small things, they feel like dying. 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 And I know that I will never be the same. And I know that I can never place the blame. And I know that glad I'm here. Even though I know that we will never more be near, I see your face, just an inch above the corn, and in your place are many trinkets I have worn to the sky. Your mother's lemon tree will grow way up high, where you and I will never go, never go, never go, never go. These small things, they feel like dying. These small things, they feel like dying. But I'm still here. I'm glad I'm here. Even though I know that we will never more be near. That old me is gone now. That she will never now appear. Thank you.
I still get such goosebumps.
Again,
Wow.
trying not to break down. It's like, it's timeless. It really is. These lyrics. Thank
It was
you.
gorgeous. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's such what I love also is the form and function of that song works so well together. It's so beautifully orchestrated to follow your voice through it. And I'd love to start breaking down maybe a little bit of how that kind of structuring came together. And I want to welcome our special second half of the show guest, Jessie Linden. Pew, 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 pew. Hello, Jessie. Jessie, it is amazing to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
Sorry, I'm still just a little whew from Stacey's performance. You were the drummer in the show and on the album. You're really the driving force behind so many of these tracks. And I think something we've kind of skirted around, but maybe not explicitly said, is how you, as actors and performers, were playing members of a band. And I would love if maybe you could start talking a little bit about how that affected how this music was shaped. And did you guys really become a band, or was this just a gig?
Yeah, I think we definitely became a band. We got to do one gig outside the show, which was really fun. And I hope we can do more of that at some point. But I think talking about orchestration, a lot of musicals that I've encountered, the process goes something like an orchestrator and or an arranger and or a writer. They will hand you sheet music. They'll hand you charts of the songs, and then, you know, there's shaping that goes on and there's drafting and editing. But this was the opposite. This was, we got in a room with a member of our to-be-formed band, Andrew, who had a bunch of songs, and we as a group came up with the arrangements, and that's why we are all credited as orchestrators. So I think just like bands outside of musical theater create their parts that way, I think with the sort of framing that we have in musicals of somebody is given orchestration duties and credit, that's how that came to be for this project. And in doing that, I think it definitely made us a band.
So that grassroots kind of evolution of the music, is there a moment you could point to that's on our record that really kind of captures the product of that sort of work?
Well, So I think coming up with these arrangements was always a marriage of the narrative of the story, who we were as the characters, and what our instruments were. And with the show being about robots, constructed beings, people whose rights were being challenged, people who were being oppressed just because they were not born human beings, even though they were sentient. We were playing like humans, how you might think humans play. There's one spot in the show where we kind of wink at the idea that we're just a bunch of robots, and it's this kind of mechanical sounding section. We endearingly call it the toy soldier section. I love that section, but I think it has a little robotic wink in it, and there's a little bit more that I would point to in the show, but that's really like this one section that does that. But the rest of the show, I think part of the point is that you listen to it and you don't think that robots are playing this. You think humans are playing it, which I think goes with what the show is really about.
Absolutely. I think Sophia can cue this up for us. Maybe we can listen to just that section and kind of break it down a little bit so that when people go listen later, they'll know what they're hearing.
Cool.
Yes, this is from Apple in the Sky.
We didn't say what song it was in.
Yeah,
we just totally skipped over that part.
This is from Apple in the Sky.
Spotify.
A great time to know what to look for on Spotify later to make sure you found the right album.
People are making a little bit of like weird sounds on the instruments to make this happen. Stacey's making some like non-singing mouth sounds. It's great fun.
This really, Tony, the other producer of the record, I think was quite surprised by this section when we started laying it down. And we heard these knocking noises later in the track, and he was like, "What is this?" We're like, Tony, that's Stacey.
Right. I don't know how I came up with that. I don't know. It's what I do when I hear nails on a chalkboard because it hurts my teeth.
So Sophia, let's switch to our plan B for this section, which is a prepared video clip.
Red dust is rising. We're looking forward to leaving.
Man, that's spoiler alert. That might be my favorite track on the record. But that section is so fun. What are all those sounds happening?
I couldn't hear it. It didn't play for me. I don't know why.
Oh, Andrew. But you remember.
I have heard it before. I do remember what's in it.
I don't remember. I mean, I just know mine was I was just literally like doing that. Sorry, I know that bothers Andrew.
Jesse, what did you add to your kit that you had in the studio to make some of those noises?
I just added the ratchet, the humble ratchet. It seemed to do the job. So during the show, I just had it on the side, so I just got to like. So we put that in there.
Yeah, I think Rick is doing all kinds of really wild, like extended technique accordion sounds that provide a lot of like percussive things happening too. And Tony with stops and things. And
watching the two of them in their booths was just so amazing. It was like dueling banjos, but otherworldly.
Yeah.
So the instrumentation, we're talking about, other members of the band now, and other actors in the show, and the instruments that they brought with them. Andrew, was there a conscious effort in shaping who was going to be included in this band and the instruments they play? How did that kind of all come to be?
It was a little bit of an intersection of dreaming and listening, in terms of like, I think it's a band that has a drummer and a bassist. And some of it emerged from like Rick, who plays the accordion, saw one of my early solo show versions and reached out to me and offered like all this amazing like research and excitement around folk music and political folk music. And Rick is also like a real deal political folk musician who has an amazing body of work, and he's an unbelievable songwriter. So I was like really charmed and delighted, and was like, oh, I'd love to support it. Like if Rags Parkland ever has a band, call me up. And so I did. And I was like, well, there's accordion. Now there's an accordion in the band. And the kind of the most maybe surprising orchestration choice is Tony Jarvis, who plays tenor sax and bass clarinet. And that was kind of an instance of meeting the right human, meeting a person who is able to bring the beautiful energy that Tony brings, and also a creative musician who is tapped into storytelling through an expression through an instrument. And that was more important, that like human connection vibe, you were going to fit into the spirit and culture of this space, was more important than like finding somebody who like had to play French horn or whatever, like orchestrational dream. So it was like a lot of factors coming together of building a group of people, and also building a group of people that could play as a band together. And the result is just incredibly specific, which I love.
Yeah, Tony's energy really carried me through so much of our recording too. For anyone who hasn't recorded before, I mean, studios don't often have windows because of the acoustics and all this other stuff. And we were basically in this very well appointed cave for 3 days setting this down. And he really pulled me through this stuff. With Rick's, if I can go back for a second, so Rick bringing a lot of this knowledge with him of folk music, and then other research done, and the kind of organic growth of the record. Some of the songs are folk songs that existed in the universe of the show before the band The Future performed them, and some of them are originals, right? So is there a way that's reflected in the content itself?
Yes, totally. Yeah. And so all of these, like in our real world, I wrote these songs, and then I have assigned who wrote each song inside of the universe of Rags Parkland. And then like in our real world, our real band turned them from like songs, like me playing guitar songs, into the band's version of those songs with like a drum part that Jesse wrote, and that now exists and that is written down. And then, so some of the like characters who I assigned the writing to are characters in the band, like Rags is a songwriter who writes songs. There's a song in the show that the character Rick Burkhart wrote, a confusing naming convention that I'll never get tired of. And there are songs that Bo Weathers wrote, and there are songs that were written by folk musicians that exist between our 2020 present and their 23rd century present, by musicians that these writers look back to and look up to, and whose tradition they're inside of. Yeah, and in writing some of those songs, I was thought about like, this kind of like pulling on a more like folksy song shapes in terms of like song structure, like songs that are kind of have like a very repetitive progression, that the lyrics are just laid out over verse after verse and a simple chorus, like songs with no bridge, songs that aren't playing by the rules of like good musical theater songwriting, or like contemporary pop songwriting, which are both great structures for writing killer songs. But part of the dramaturgy of this was using the format of these folk songs. And then some of the Future's music, especially like the songs that Bo wrote, have a more contemporary feel.
Can you play us a song that you feel kind of gives another perspective from what we've already kind of had on the program?
Yes. I'm gonna play a song that Rags wrote, because that's the song that I have in my back pocket. This is a song that Rags wrote for Bo, or with Bo, or to Bo, or to tease Bo, he says later on. Oh, my chair is not the ideal chair for guitar playing, but we're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna turn down my gain just a little bit and see how that goes. Honey pie, I like your eye and how it falls on me. Turn the spring that makes us sing in perfect harmony. I know that you're not full of gears, but still I harbor silly fears about what my folks are gonna say when they find out you're a robot and I love you just the same. Honey child, I love your smile and how it fills your face. You're a book I'll read all night and never lose my place. I know you're made of flesh and blood, but not from woman did you come. Well, you're part perfect lover, part machine. So what's a superhuman girl doing with a no-good chump like me? But I thought I was the luckiest guy to ever roam these hills. You're a treat and you're a sight, and God knows you're a thrill. And everything was peachy keen until you know. Well, honey, babe, I love the way you love me strong and slow. Your heart's a clock, it says tick-tock, and boy, does that clock go. Well, pretty soon it's 4 a.m., and you're ready to go again. I'm not sure that I'm well enough equipped to keep up with the kisses from your perfect android lips. Hey, it's so fun to sing that song, being able to see Stacey, because in the show, Rags talks about having not wanted to play it because he's like embarrassed and he's afraid. He's a nervous boy, Rags Parkland.
I was just looking at you and I was like, I will never get tired of hearing you sing about Robot Me.
So much of what makes a number of the songs on the album work is just the chemistry between the two of you and the chemistry between the band that I think is just a form of how this came to be, and it being from all of you.
Yes. And I think that's the beauty of building the way that we built too, is that it's a show that is built not just on a text, but on relationships and on the collaboration of, you know, everybody in the room. And when you're doing theater, you're just continually adding people to the room. And all of that is carried forward in the specificity of the album and in the sound design that exists around the album, of placing an audience in the room with us, even though we recorded in a studio, and in the way that we set up the recording studio so that we could capture as much of the live energy as we could while still being able to, you know, make something that sounds freaking beautiful. And the theatrical moments in the show, which also exist on the record, like the raid is there. So there are a few moments that exist on the record that are shaped in a way that suggests the world.
Jesse and Stacey, what was it like? There were moments when we were all kind of getting to play together, and then there were moments, especially for Stacey, to preserve your voice, where you were kind of more isolated from everyone, which is obviously very different from that live infectious energy where you're all looking at each other the whole show. What did that do for you as individuals who needed to lay this music down in 3 days, and then for you as performers, and how it influenced, what Jordan and Madeline could get out of you?
I'll go first. So I think that the way the studio was set up was very helpful, because I could never not see anyone. I was always able to see everyone, even if it was like through a little window. So I remember the moments in the show that I had specific connections with people, I would look for them in the studio. And, with Andrew being placed right across from me, though he was like 25 feet away and through glass, it still was helpful. I was feeling his energy through the glass. So we just, did our best to, I think that it wasn't hard because we all have personal relationships outside of the show, and everyone is like a beautiful human being and like good people. So it wasn't hard. It was just different,
It was so fun watching your faces too the whole time either of you were singing, because we had Andrew, you were in the control room with us, so we could have everyone kind of play as much together, and then you were looking through an entire room where Jesse and Debbie were into the booth in the back where Stacey was. We had a lot of fun watching your faces light up throughout the session. Jesse, what about you?
Well, when we did the show, because of the space and just the logistics, I was behind glass the whole time. And it was hard. It took some getting used to. I'm used to being isolated with other shows, but in other shows, I'm not playing a character and I'm not trying to connect with the other people who are singing. I'm not trying to connect with them in that way. And there were definitely moments in the show where I was able to connect with everybody. Now, a year later, we are on this tight time schedule and we're in a different configuration. I'm not behind glass. I'm kind of in the middle. Everybody can see me. And it just was kind of a whole different thing. But I was just happy to be able to see people. And it was a lot of fun recalling those moments where we would connect when we did the show. And then there were also tons of new moments, because just the nature of trying to get some quick takes. Just, okay, I'm going to follow you, you follow you. And so we were looking like, in a pattern, someone was looking at someone, was looking at someone. That's kind of what you have to do sometimes, but it was a lot of fun.
Also the first time some of you could hear each other's parts.
Yeah, the mix was different. Yeah. I
we had the board running through to all of you versus in the show, you and your, sound deflectors and everyone else. I mean, it must have been very different.
It was different. Yeah.
And now here we are connecting through our computer screens.
Yeah.
I'd give anything to go back to glass. Guys, this ties really well into a viewer submitted question. For each of you, what song were you most excited to record?
Apple for me, Apple in the Sky.
Apple's far and away for me.
Yeah, I think it was my favorite song to perform in the show. So I was just really excited to lay that one down.
Well, I love Apple in the Sky, but I have to say, I think I was most excited to reconnect on and preserve Stacey singing These Small Things. That was a treat. And I was so excited for Andrew and Tony to record Delilah and the Rebel.
Yeah. That's one of my
very last song.
Yeah.
Worth the wait.
I love that. Oh man. Yeah, it's all I was really excited for this. So there's the song Stella Charlemagne that is in the show twice and on the album twice as a result. That is one of the songs that's written by a folk musician, a fictional folk musician from their world named Octavia Phillips. And Rags plays a very stripped down version in his solo concert, and Bo plays the Futures version, which is the band has orchestrated actually without Rags, and Tony, who in the show plays Gil, who doesn't sit in on that song like he sits on some other songs. So I love when that song is getting worked on, because I actually get to like just luxuriate in all of you doing it. And it's so exciting to be like, oh, I wrote this song. Like, here's some melody, some lyrics. Here's what I play on the guitar when I play it. And that rearrangement and reorchestration of the song is so dynamic. It's so different. And it also is so from all of you in a way that is like really rich and specific. And then also I get to like just sit back and smile or cry or whatever I need to do. So I was really excited about that one, and it really paid off. It was beautiful.
Jesse, Stacey, what was it like reimagining Stella for the Bo version of it, which is the second one in the show?
Well, for me, we kind of have 1, 2, 3. There are a lot of versions that have passed through of that song. There's Andrew's solo version. There's Andrew's solo version where the band accompanies him. Then there's the version that we did, which is, it has a different meter and feel, but is lyrically it's the same song, melodically it's the same song. So it was just exciting to try on different hats with it. And then I think coming out of the mouth of Bo, of Stacey, is just, it has different meaning, especially as the show progresses. As an audience member, you learn more about that song and the significance of it, what the story of the song, and what it means for Bo. And for actually all of us non-humans.
And it's the only moment in the show where, well, no, Rick does play a little bit on it, but I was going to say the three women are together. And I think it's visually, it was powerful just to be inhabited in the three of us, because we're all very specific. But to have that connection with the women on the stage, and then recreating that in the studio, it's just a joy. Yeah.
And I forgot that the other version, so there's the show version where I came out of the glass and I got to sit next to you and play a cajon instead of a drum set.
Right.
And in the studio, we didn't do that. I played drum set. So we did it's like a bonus version, just a new version that we worked on just for the record. It was a lot of fun to do.
So unfortunately, we have to start winding down. I have just 2 more questions left. This is another listener-submitted, viewer-submitted question. What is your favorite fact about the record that you wouldn't know if you weren't in the studio? I think for me, while you guys have a chance to think about it, because I've seen the question on the screen for a little bit, I really love, and I think, Stacey, I think it was you, or maybe it was Jesse who pointed this out to me in the first place, but there's at least one lyric in the show that is like a fantastic lyric, but doesn't necessarily mean anything specific, which is, we say, old hole, unbone.
Yes, and oh my gosh, what's
We talked about that in the control room.
Never find a snap.
Never find it now. Yeah, I remember when we were in rehearsals, I remember turning to Andrew and being like, so what does this mean? Because and he was like, it was just a great word. And I had like all these visuals about like carcasses, and I mean, it works.
It does work.
It does work, but yeah.
Sometimes you just have to trust a word that bubbles up, and it's great to be able to trust collaborators who will take that intuitive choice and make beautiful meaning out of it.
Or some other.
I have a recording fact.
Mm-hmm.
I quite enjoyed, for a reason that was not explained to me, Rick's isolation booth had a light in it, like green, red, blue, like slow blinking, but it just kept changing color, and just, it was just really fun to watch him in there. That's his room. That was it. So all the accordion that you hear is punctuated by fun lights.
I'll offer overall.
It was, No, what? No, I was going to say we already talked about the thing that you wouldn't know unless you were in the studio, or I mean, you would have seen it in the show if you were looking at me at that point. But during the toy soldier section, like what I was doing, like that sound. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a fun thing. I wonder what people imagine when they listen to a record like this, a musical theater record versus like a non-musical theater record, where like very specifically in this show, there's a lot of instrumental solos and things that happen, and because all the musicians wrote all of their own instrument parts, those solos are just real solos, some of which were different every night of the show. And so what is on the record is speaking to that moment in the studio and how we were feeling and what we were like, what was jamming on that day. It's not a reproduction of a set notated, line that was repeated every night in the show. So what you're hearing on the record is some of those solos were never in the live show and may never be heard again. It's its own object, unique.
And we're different between takes. And then we were all in the control room listening to them back in the context of what else we'd made and like arguing about which one fit in best, and the mood of the room kind of pushing through the solo that people will hear when they listen.
Which I think added to the vibe of like us being a band as opposed to us being actors. You know what I mean? You were surprised every time we played a song.
And Stacey, you and I have talked about this. I mean, you guys got to be a part of giving mix notes and, having a kind of back end creative participation that I feel, I mean, I'm not a musical theater actor, so you guys might know better than me, but I don't think that's something you get in every cast album situation.
Never. This is the first time I've ever experienced being a part of the mixing process after you've laid down your vocals. Normally, you go in the studio, you sing your parts, and you're done. But again, because of who Andrew is, we were all a part of that process, and there were many a Google Doc that we were writing notes in with our timestamps. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced, and to be able to have a hand in what is going to be put out in the world as an artist it doesn't get any better than that, to feel a sense of ownership and control over your work.
So you've teed me up perfectly for, I'm cognizant of the time and Sophia sending me messages. We've got to wrap up in a second, but I think, my final question here, that ties so well into it. What do you want, what do you hope people will take away from listening to our album and this story and this artifact we've created?
I hope that folks are able to sit with it and connect it like anew and freshly. I think there's something nice about this record in that it's a collection of songs that don't necessarily tell a linear story because it's not that kind of a musical. So I think there's lots of in points and lots of ways that you can connect to the material on its own, the songs, things that come up for folks. So I hope that all of those layers function for people listening to the album, that they don't come into it worried about trying to get a particular specific, like, discrete lesson or hearing a particular linear narrative, but allow themselves to build connections to what is resonating with them in the work.
Yeah, I would say the same. It's like poetry in that it will speak to everyone in a different way, depending on what's going on with them. And That's what makes it so different from a regular musical theater album. Is that anyone can enjoy this and it can resonate with anyone.
Yeah, I think at a time where life for us, as we know it, as people who make theater and play music, has changed so much, it makes me look at what people create and put out into the world differently. And there are so many people putting out interesting, exciting, moving pieces of art, period. And it's an honor to have something out there now at this time that has a piece of my voice, like one small part of this like big experience we're having as people in the US and everywhere with what this year has turned into. So I hope that people can feel how much I love this music. And I hope that there's something in it for anybody who listens to it to help them get through this time.
I think catharsis and comfort are certainly things that come out of it for me now that maybe didn't as much when we were first working on this. And that's, on the one hand, disappointing that that's something that comes out of this, but it's such a wonderful tool to have. And, oftentimes, if I work on something, once it's done, I can't go back and listen to it right away because there's so much time on this, and I just keep back to this time and time again. Stacey looks like she's having she's back. Just in time. Well, I want Stacey to catch this last moment here. I will take this opportunity to tell everyone that if you like what you heard, if you're interested by what we've talked about today, you can go stream the full album anywhere that you get music, Spotify, Apple, Tidal, anywhere. You can go to BroadwayRecords.com to download the digital booklet. And please, if you found this interesting, share it with your friends, share it with anyone you think needs to hear this music right now. Stacey, Andrew, Jesse, I really want to thank you guys for coming and, helping dive into some of these tracks and letting people into this world a little bit. And I really want to thank Van and Dina and Sophia and everyone over at Broadway Records for setting this up for us. I want to thank, Rick, Debbie, Tony, Jeremy. There's so many people to thank, but just everyone who made this music possible and made this event possible. And so good to see your faces, guys.
You too, David. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, y'all. It's just like leaving a Zoom call.
There is room for all of you here, whether you're synthetically constructed, you're biologically constructed, you're human born without a circuit on you. You are a little of all of the above. You exist some way we never heard of. You've got a spot here that includes all of who you are and all of who we are. You know we lose what you cannot give. We know you give more than you can give. Be the call for the soul to live. You are the cold face on top of the counter. I am the candle that burns in the desert. We are the strands that are stronger together. Take me to where only is where we are and we are and we are. Take me to what just exists when we are and we are and we are. Take me to where only is when we are and we are and we are. Take me to what just exists when we are and we are and we are and we are and we are. 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 Yes, y'all are part of the band.